There are a lot of people right now talking to neurodivergent individuals.
Thank you for listening to the Chicken Yogi Show, hosted by the Chicken Yogi, Kit Kilstow. Kit's passion is creating neurodivergent liberation in all its forms through spiritual and creative mentoring. Remember who you were before you were told who you couldn't be. The Chicken Yogi Show is distributed on the Use Charmer Network. Learn more at chickenyogi.com and subscribe to our newsletter while you're there for a free gift. Please follow the podcast at podcast.chickenyogi.com or on your favorite podcast app or platform. And check out all the shows on the Muse Charmer Network at musecharmer.com. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Music is Running with the Horses by Purple Planet Music. Their website is purple-planet.com.
Because let's face
this show is copyright 2024. All rights reserved by the Chicken Yogi
I don't care
and
if that's
Kit
a box from when you're moving or whether you're unpacking internalized thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. And for the vast majority of us who get diagnosed when we have already built up a good storehouse of these thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, usually we're called late diagnosed autistics, we are still trying to fit ourselves into neurotypical molds. And where I'm coming from is that if you don't fully unmask your soul and your spirit and the essence of who you are as an embodied human being, then if masking to live in a neurotypical society causes burnout and causes stress and causes trauma, aren't all these coaches and business people and entrepreneurs out there simply setting up a whole bunch of neurodivergent individuals to just fall down and burn out again? And aren't we trying to avoid all that? Hello, all my lovely listeners. I am so glad you're here to join me, Kit Kilstow, the Chicken Yogi, for this episode of the Chicken Yogi Show. I have been taking the summer off. I have been doing a lot of soul searching. I have been doing a lot of thinking and, frankly, a lot of unmasking in my own embodied essence and in my own spirit and soul, to think about what messages I want to share with you, what conversations I want to have with you, and how I want to bring this information to you. So this is just kind of a heads up. You may see a little shift in my conversations, but rest assured, they are all coming from the same place of helping you hatch your authentic self and live your embodied authentic self. So as you heard from the intro, one of the things that I have been thinking about is neurodivergent coaching, because I am in a lot of neurodivergent business groups, and I am in, I follow quite a few neurodivergent coaches, and one of them sent out an email the other day, and basically it said why masking is good for you. And I saw that, and I had an immediate gut reaction, and it was accompanied by some 4-letter words, because there is, even within neurotypical psychology, so I mean, like, even the neurotypicals are starting to figure out that when neurodivergent folks mask, when we try to blend in, it causes stress, it causes trauma, and it causes a lot of the pathologies and a lot of the illnesses and problems that we experience at a higher rate compared to the population as a whole. And I've been having conversations with a really good friend of mine who is also neurodivergent and who also, like me, is of an age where we've seen some things and we've been through some things. And we're just kind of talking about what we see out there. And there's neurodivergent as a buzzword, and I feel like right now everybody has finally figured out that we're out there. It's like, the Vulcans have landed and made first contact with Earth, and everybody's like, aliens. It's, the show on the History Channel, Ancient Aliens, where no matter what's happened in the past, it's aliens. They're out there. So we are modern day aliens. In fact, sometimes it feels like we're, trying to live in a foreign land and on a foreign planet sometimes when dealing with our society. And so since everybody's figured out that we're out there, everybody's trying to now market to us. We are a demographic. I'm sorry, that was really dripping with sarcasm. Well, not sorry. But, people have figured it out. And so there are two different groups of people moving into the neurodivergent space. And one group I am fully in favor of, and that is us. That is neurodivergent people. We have finally gotten a name or an understanding of what's going on with our brains, why we do seem different from everybody else. We're embracing that. We're taking pride in that, and we want to help other neurodivergent people. And I am so here for that. I'm literally here for that. The other group are professionals who have figured out that neurodivergent people exist and that their business coach have told them that that's a niche that they could go into. And some of them do generally want to help. Others are there because it's a market and it's a business, and we won't talk about them. But the bottom line is, whether people are in this space because they want to help, whether people are in this space because they are also neurodivergent and they want to help, and again, anything that helps neurodivergent people are good. I am trying very hard not to pass a judgment value on any of it, except for the people that are here because it's a market and they want to make money. Let's leave capitalism out of this conversation. But capitalism is so much a part of this conversation, because what happens is, if we are neurodivergent, and, I'm going to say, full confession, I kind of did this myself when I first started this work. If we are neurodivergent, then the only thing that we know, especially like myself, is a very late diagnosed neurodivergent person, is the neurotypical world and the neurotypical society. And in the case of trying to start my own business, neurotypical business marketing, neurotypical business practices. There are things that you're told you're supposed to do that are kind of parroted by all of the business coaches. And all of that is based on neurotypicals. Surprise, surprise. And so when you start telling neurodivergent people that they should unmask, but you yourself have not fully unmasked and unpacked all of the neurotypical things that you have internalized, that you have taken in and accepted as this is the way the world works, then you're basically passing along a neurotypicality to neurodivergent people. And I'm sure there's going to be people that's going to be upset about that. And I'm also not saying that I'm perfect in this. This unpacking, this unmasking of your spirit, of your soul, finding your true essence, it is a long process. It kind of, like any healing or like any growth, kind of comes in fits and starts. There are times where there's great big aha moments and it's like the world is opened up. And then you go for a few months, a few years, and you're just kind of, stuck in your molds and stuck in those built-in stories. And until you can bust out of them by unpacking them or unmasking them, it's hard to go forward. So, and there's also the truism that hurt people hurt people. And again, I don't want to say that people who don't unpack hurt people, but I think we also need to step back. Right now, this industry is absolutely exploding. And we need to step back and say, hey, are we fully unpacking what it means to be neurodivergent? Or are we just looking on the surface, saying our brains work differently, and then moving forward with telling people to unmask? Because that is very helpful, and that is a wonderful first step for a great many people. But it also can put them, if they're still trying to do that within the neurotypical paradigm of our culture and our world, that can also cause a lot of frustration and lead down the road to burnout, as my initial question asked. Because let's look at what unmasking is. So unmasking is more than accepting the way that your brain works. That's a good first step. That's an excellent first step. Hey, I think differently. But what does it mean to you to think differently? I can cite, for example, all of the various ways that my ADHD brain appears to work differently. I make quick connections between things that appear to be disparate. My mind bounces from topic to topic to topic. I was just talking to my spouse. I was sharing some things that I was reading in a book for a class that I'm like totally getting into, and that's probably going to be next week's show. But, I was telling him it takes me probably twice as long to read as it should, because I get excited about a topic. I then go off to the college library. I dive in and I look for books or scholarly articles, or I go off to JSTOR, which is a wonderful archive of scholarly articles. Grab half a dozen articles, throw them in a folder on my computer, and then I go back to reading. A few paragraphs, a page later, I run into another footnote. Oh, look, it's a different person, or it's a different term. The whole thing repeats over and over again. And I'm sure, especially, my fellow ADHDers out there who, will recognize that. That's the dopamine going ding, 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 ding. This makes us happy, and we're going forward with it. So I can accept that my brain works that way. And so in doing so, I then make plans when I'm reading that, it's going to probably take me this long to read when it should, and see, there it goes. That was just one of those things that I need to unpack. No, it takes me as long to read as it takes me as long to read and follow those little trails of thought. It shouldn't take me a certain amount of time to read. It's going to take the time it's going to take. And it's that unpacking. And like I said, I just caught myself right there. It is that unpacking that goes beyond the surface explanations or the surface buzzwords or definitions. And we're going to take that a step further, because our bodies, and this is when I talk about unpacking your spirit, or unmasking your spirit, unmasking your spirit or unmasking your soul. And I will try not to get too far in the weeds here. I feel like this is some foundational stuff before we really get into the weeds. So I don't want to jump into the deep end, so to speak, without laying down some ground rules and giving you a life preserver first. But for the most part, psychology and most of the self-help section, and frankly, most of the people out there in the neurodivergent coaching, entrepreneur, psychology, therapy space, talk about the mind and the body being two separate things. And we can even see this echoed to some extent in, for example, yoga philosophy. There is matter, which is stuff. It's your body. It's literally your brain. Your brain is matter. It is made out of the same cells and same minerals that your body is. And then there's your spirit or your essence, and that's your impulses, your thoughts, your perceptions, things that aren't quite grounded in matter. There's not a tangible thought if I see a snake and there's that moment of snake until I recognize it and go, oh yeah, you're the one I always see, you're okay. But, you know, if you see something, or, you know, there's the moment of, I see my cat sitting on my desk, but there's so much more that goes along with the physical matter of the cat. There's the sensation of love. You know, I love my cat. There's warm, fuzzy. There's, my cat is silly. She is. I call her the crazy banana. You know, there's so many things, and there's so many more things that make up you as well. You are not just your body, but you are also the embodied experiences of your body. You are your thoughts, your feelings, the lessons that you have learned over the course of your lifetime. And underneath it all, there are also familial, I can't say the word, family or cultural or social or political underlayments of things that you believe are true. And so that's a lot. That is a lot. And so if we don't unpack a lot of that, then what you do is, if you could kind of imagine a cross section of the ground, and you might have a layer of dirt. So here in the Ozarks, you have kind of a thin layer of dirt. You have a layer of rocks and dirt and gravel, and then you have rock. And so you might kind of, you know, unpack a little bit of that on the dirt, but then there's the gravel and the dirt or the rocks to go through. You might just take a thin layer off the top, feel like, wow, I've done a lot of work. And you probably have. That is a lot of work that our society and our culture hasn't built us for. But then there's so much more work to do. And I'm not saying this to make you feel like, you know, you'll never be fully unmasked, because every step you take towards your authentic self is an excellent step. Every time you move closer to your authentic self, you're doing a great thing. And it doesn't matter if you're at the start of your journey, if you've been doing this for decades, if you've been doing this for a year, it does not matter. And I don't want us to have an unmasking Olympics here. What I do want us to do is be aware that, because so much of our culture believes in this mind-body split, that they feel like unmasking happens in the body, it happens in the mind, without thinking about all those other things. And so what happens is, if somebody hasn't unpacked those other paradigms, and I'm going to riff for a little bit on neurodivergent business coaching. So as somebody who's been in the entrepreneurial space, oh gosh, we'll say 12 to 15 years easily, probably longer, but time has lost all meaning. But at least 12 to 15 years. There are some things that are pretty much universal. You know, they say you have to have a funnel. You have to have a lead page. So you go to somebody's website, and you know, I have it too. You go to my website, it says, you know, if you want a free meditation, I believe is what I'm currently offering, or on my author site, you want a free book from me, sign up here, have a newsletter, sign up for my newsletter, get the free book. That's a funnel. That's a landing page. There's all sorts of business stuff into that. And that's not bad. I mean, that's a good way to kind of, you know, it's all around us. It's ubiquitous. The coupon you get in the mail, we get them once a year for a chain restaurant in town. And so we get a coupon for, like, you know, $5 off our dinner. So once a year we eat at this chain restaurant. We use our coupon. We're happy. And what they're hoping is, obviously, that gets you in the door and you go visit the restaurant more often. It's marketing. It's business. Well, that's all well and good. But if you have a neurodivergent person come to you, they don't want you to say, well, you need a lead page. they don't want you to just drop, this marketing advice that has literally been around for 15, 20 years. They may need help with that, and they may need part of what they're doing, but what they're looking for, especially if it's an area where they have issues kind of comprehending it or working in that space. And social media is a great example. Social media is a very neurotypical space. Now, I am absolutely, so happy that I'm on Mastodon, because there's an autistic community on Mastodon. There's, quite a few autistic groups or neurodivergent groups on Facebook. And we have these little spaces where we can be ourselves, and it's totally cool. But when you're presenting yourself, for example, as a business, that, the advice is basically present yourself like a neurotypical person. Well, I'll be honest with you. I look at that advice, I look at social media, and my head just explodes. I can't do that, because that means certain things to me at this point in my life and at this point in my career. And I just, it ain't working. So when a neurodivergent person is giving advice, or somebody who claims that they're in the neurodivergent business space is giving advice to neurodivergent people, if they have not unmasked, if they have not unpacked everything, then they're going to sound like every other neurotypical business coach out there. And it all starts to sound like a cacophony of sameness after a while. So, and I'm not saying this to put, to throw shade on anybody. I'm not saying this to make anybody feel mad or guilty, but I hope it's a moment for self-reflection. Like I said, I hope it's a moment for those of us in the neurodivergent coaching space to have self-reflection and to say, hey, how are we operating? How are we working in this space? And is it our true authentic selves, or is it things that we are told that we should do? And that right there is your clue. Remember how earlier in the episode where I was talking about the book that I was reading, and I said it should take me this long to read? That word should is a really good indication that those expectations aren't authentic, that those expectations aren't coming from within, but they are coming from some outside pressures. So, in the mornings when I'm struggling to get out of bed, and I say I should get up and go feed the horses. Well, yes, I should give my horses their breakfast. That is an important aspect of their care. It's also a time for me to check in with them overnight, because they are 1,000-pound toddlers, and who the hell knows what they got into. Pretty much every morning we've been good. But when I say that should, though, what I am saying to myself is my body, my mind, my nervous system needs something. I am struggling with this transition to my daily chores, and now I'm looking at the clock and I'm feeling like I'm behind schedule. And usually it's because I, took my meds, laid back down for an hour, fell asleep, because that's usually what happens. And so then I feel like I didn't start my day at an appropriate time, and now everything has been pushed back like an hour or two. And, the horses, your cats, your dogs, your pets, they may tell you otherwise, that their dinner, their breakfast is late. But unless there are medical reasons for them to eat at specific certain hours of the day, they have no concept of the clock. They have no concept of, 5 o'clock versus 5:30. The concept that they have is, I usually get fed and I like food, and so I'm going to ask for food because this is usually what happens. And as I say this, I can hear, my cat crunching on, on her food bowl there in the background. That should is an indication that there are I don't want to say unnatural, but outside pressures, other than the ebbs and flows of life and your body and your brain and the bodies and the brains of, your companion animals or whatever chore you need to do. I say this, and again, I'm coming up on kind of my usual stopping point for podcast, so I think I'm going to try to wrap it up here. This is the tippiest tip of an iceberg that I want to explore with you. That you may think I'm full of shit, and I'll say that. That's okay. I hope you listen, and I hope you at least think about what I'm saying. That everybody is telling neurodivergent people that we need to unmask, and that is a good thing. But I think we need to think about where they're coming from with the unmasking, what paradigms they're working in, what they want to do, and just unpack all of that. Because it's going to do us no good to unmask if we're still unmasking within a system that is based in neurotypicality. Now, it will help us handle the ebbs and flows of neurotypical life, society, culture. It will hopefully postpone the burnout. But if we don't really unmask our souls and our spirits and the true essences of who we are and try to live as authentically true to that as possible, then we can unmask, but we're also going to be headed for burnout. And that's what I want. That's what I want us to avoid. I want to avoid it personally. I want you to avoid it. I want us as a community, us as a whole, to avoid it. But I feel like these people that are talking about, just unmask and that'll keep you from burning out, is just making a very complex and many multifaceted situation just way too simple. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that food for thought. If you have thoughts about this episode, I encourage you to reach out. You can reach at me through social media. You can reach me through chickenyogi.com. Please don't forget to like, follow, share wherever you're hearing my voice. And I hope to come to you very soon. And we'll continue this conversation and talk about what do I mean when I talk about our soul or our spirit or our embodied existence. Thank you so much. Be kind to yourself. This is the Chicken Yogi Show, hosted by the Chicken Yogi, Kit Kilstow. Kit is a spiritual mentor who shares spiritual wisdom to help neurodivergent people remember who they are. They believe that we all deserve full liberation and radical self-acceptance and love. Learn more and receive a free gift when you subscribe at chickenyogi.com. And now, this week's show.